Okay, so this is the second day in this sort of watercolor challenge that I've set myself. So it's just producing a painting every day and then recording that process and uploading that as a video to YouTube. The painting a picture every day is not so much of a problem. It's more the recording it and editing it and getting it up onto YouTube. That's where problems could start. That's where certainly technical issues can happen. This is the fourth attempt at this particular video. It's not a very long video, but I've had technical problems. I also had a coughing fit while recording one of them. So what I tend to do is as I'm painting, I try and record that process, but I'm also listening to music. So I can't put that up onto YouTube. It would get a copyright strike, and too many of those in the channel get shut down. So instead what I do is I remove the sound from the video. I play the video again, and then I sort of narrate, talk about whatever it is that I'm doing. So yeah, anyway, I had a coughing fit during one of those processes, and that had to be stopped and restarted. So maybe fourth time lucky. So the whole process can be quite time consuming. And obviously I'd rather spend as much time as possible actually painting and drawing. But on the other hand, this sort of challenge does have its good points. So it forces me, first of all, it forces me to do more editing and create more videos, which means I'm going to hopefully learn a bit more about the whole process of creating videos. My knowledge of that at the moment is still very limited. Yet also, I want to force myself to get away from the sort of landscapes that I'm doing at the moment. I'm doing these because I find them easy. So it's not challenging me very much. What I want to do is try and create more urban landscapes, sort of cityscapes. But especially I want to include figures and people. Now I've done sort of sketching of people in sort of urban landscapes, but I haven't really tried watercolor. So I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to go about that. It's all very new, and whether or not I'll be able to do it. But anyway, that's the goal that I'm sort of setting myself. So by the end of these 20 days or 20-ish days, I hope to have at least a few videos which are more figure based and slightly more urban. There is of course always then the chance that on a particular day the video may be a failure rather than a success. So the final painting may not be something that I'm happy with. But that's all part of the challenge. In terms of this painting, colors that I'm using, so I used a Payne's grey in the sky. It was a wet in wet, so the top half of the paper was soaked, so you get those softer edges. I used a Prussian blue for that sort of horizon line, and the initial horizon line, and you can still see bits of that Prussian blue there. Beneath that there was a phthalo green. I think it's actually phthalo green light. It's produced by Sennelier. Also another Sennelier paint was the cadmium yellow, which is sort of the yellow I'm using at the moment as well. I love this cadmium yellow, but it's very expensive. I think basically any paint that has words like cadmium in front of the color tend to be more expensive. Sennelier also produced, for example, a lemon yellow, which is a very similar color, but when you put it onto the paper, it's just not the same. It doesn't have the same, it's just not as alive. It's a little bit more dead. but it is much cheaper. So I guess like a lot of things, you get what you pay for kind of thing. Other colors that I'm using, I think there was also a ultramarine blue in there. So there's a couple of blues, a grey, yellow, and a green. Plus, of course, when you put the yellow, the cadmium yellow, onto the paper, especially wet and wet, you're going to get the pigment moving out, mixing with the blue and creating new greens on the paper. That's part of the whole wet and wet approach. You're going to get mixing happening on the paper. I also, other things like scratching the paper, flicking the paint on, it's just trying to create texture, and that texture creates a sort of implied detail, especially in the foreground. Okay, this is the final painting, or a scan of the final painting. So like I say, I'm going to keep trying to produce a painting of a video of a painting even, every day for the rest of this month. So hopefully see you in the next video.